Hi, thanks for tuning in to my second vlog for the U.S. event horse Futurity featuring Herzenlux. Herzenlux, or by his barn name Bailey, was born at my home in May of 2017. He's now nearly 4 years old. In this video, we've been asked to discuss how we've started our horses. Bailey has been a joy to raise at home and has been desensitized since birth. By the time he was 3 weeks old, he was already halter broke and leading easily. Bailey is the first foal I've raised, so I was quick to enlist the help of professionals to make sure he got the best start. I'm blessed to be in the community of Aiken, South Carolina, where there's a cornucopia of talented trainers, each with their area of expertise. Trainer Lynn Coates Holmes originally helped me with Bailey's groundwork as a youngster at home. Under her guidance, we taught him early on what a saddle, bridle, wraps were, how to stand in cross ties, and be bathed and clipped. We taught him at a young age how to load onto trailers and exposed him to various objects he would be encountering at shows. Luckily, none of these things ever seemed to bother him. From there, he essentially grew up in my fields with a similar aged filly and my older babysitter gelding. He was handled daily, but he basically was just allowed to grow up as a horse in the fields. In the late summer, when he was roughly 2.5, we casually introduced a rider to his back in the stall, which was uneventful. He seemed curious why I was sitting on him, but that was really the extent of his reaction. In the fall of that year, I began trailering Bailey along for lessons that I was going to with my eventing mare. He would come along on the trailer on small field trips with trainer Ray Wheeler, who worked with Bailey in the round pen, getting him started. Unfortunately, that spring, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and most of our off-farm work was halted. I was lucky that at that time, my neighbor Grand Prix dressage trainer Tom Murray, who's also an expert in starting young horses, agreed to help me continue with Bailey's training at home. We began introducing him to formal lunge work, now with a rider on his back. Our schedule through the remainder of the summer was typically working 3 times a week for short increments. And during this time, we also began to introduce cavalettes and small jumps in the lunge to keep the work interesting for Bailey. We also started hacking out on trails.
Perfect. Good boy.
By the fall of his 3-year-old year, Bailey was ready to be ridden with more regular work under tack. He was happy to be in a program. Throughout the rest of the fall, we worked on the very basics of dressage, such as moving forward off the leg, transitions, accepting the bridle, and he's now schooling most of the first level movements. In November of 2020, we were ready to go to our first show off property, and I took Bailey to Stableview just along for the ride to school. By January, we went to our first 4-year-old dressage young horse test. Unfortunately, the weather did not want to cooperate. It was freezing with intermittent downpours, and we just decided that it was best to scratch to avoid Bailey having a bad show experience. Now we're in the beginning of his 4-year-old year, and it's time to start focusing on the upcoming eventing career and teaching Bailey more about the world of jumping. I placed Bailey in the full-time training program with Martine Videla, who specializes in young horses. Martine evented in the past and was once a working student for David O'Connor. Now his main focus is starting young horses for the hunter jumper rings, but he's also glad to have a potential eventer in his program as well. Martine has been starting Bailey slowly over jumps, making sure to maintain straightness and rhythm. He's been teaching him to move more forward through his body, and you can see some of last month's work in these following clips. Martine has enjoyed working with Bailey and looks forward to taking him through the Young Event Horse program. So far, he describes him as an athletic horse with an overachiever personality who at times gets frustrated when he doesn't quite understand what is being asked, but this will definitely benefit us in the future as he is eager to figure things out. Over the next months, we plan to get Bailey out to cross-country schools and enter him in some local hunter jumper shows. We will plan to do our first Young Event Horse Series competition at Full Gallop this summer. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope you have enjoyed seeing the recap of how Bailey was started and where we are currently in his training. Stay tuned for our next video blog.